Okay, hi. I'm going to be talking about rooting. I'm going to show you how I root a silicone baby. I'm not the best rooter in the world, but I do know I've been doing it for a little while, and I do know the basics. If you are already used to rooting vinyl, then it's the same process. It just feels a little bit different, but more or less the same. But anyway, so this is my little Alfie who I've started rooting already. I've just done the back because the back I hate doing, so I always do it first, and then when we turn it over, it's not the front that gets mussed up, because I always find when you turn the baby over to do the other side, the bit that it's lying on gets a bit mussed up. So I prefer to do the back first, and I like doing the front, so if I get the back out of the way first, then it's done with. So I use one of these neck pillows. I put a little stitch in it so it doesn't go all over the place, and the baby just sits with his head in it, a bit like a massage couch, I suppose. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about mapping out the head. Now I've got an old head here that I'm not going to use, so I'll show you this for mapping out if you've never done any rooting before. So I'm just going to put little Alfie on one side while I show you this. So this is the Office baby head. It's a small head, this, a bit the same size as the one I'm doing. And what I have is a white gel pen. Now I would definitely recommend you test this out on a piece of scrap silicone first. Do a mark, wait a couple of hours, and then rub it off with a bit of water. And if it comes off, then that's fine to use. If it doesn't, then don't use it. But usually the gel markers will come off, but don't leave them on for hours and hours. So if you map out the head and then you go away from it and come back another day, I would rub the mapping out and redo it. That's just me personally. So I start with the front. So usually the hairline goes to the top of the head about here. So, and every baby's headline is slightly different, but this is approximately how it goes. So you got your headline round here, which is the sort of like the top of the head, what I call the crown. It's not really the crown, but it's the main bit at the top. Now, obviously, around the back, it stops short of the neck. It doesn't go right down. You don't have hair coming out at the bottom there. So draw a little line around the back, above the neck, up around the ears to the front. Okay, so that's your line around the back. Then around the front of the ear to about there, and again the other side. Now the front part of the head is the thing that you can design however you want, but the bog standard way of doing it would be having it coming down here a little bit up like that, and then back like that. Making sure both sides are approximately symmetrical, and then that comes around here. So you've got this going on at the top. So it sort of comes forward and then goes back. Now you also have a bit of hair here at the temples. It's very, very fine. So, but don't worry too much about that. The main headline's around here. Now, you also get this, if you want to get this swirl. So this is going to go back. So we've got sort of like a teardrop shape here, and it goes round, and it goes into a swirl here. Now I'm not going to draw the swirl. A lot of people just do this really complicated swirl, but I don't think it's necessary as long as you know it's there. So the crown is here, and first of all I have the first one going down to the back of the ear, and I do the same on the other side from the top part. So in sectioning it off, I've got these areas to work on that I can work on their own without worrying. I know what direction it's going in. I don't have this massive head to deal with. And then what I do is I do a sort of spiral going down from the crown, all going from the crown, So I usually have 3 sections at the back, 1, 2, 3. At the top they all go up to the crown. The crown is here, and everything goes up to there, because all the rooting is going to go from this bit. So when the baby's hair is combed, everything gets combed away from the crown like you would with a real baby. Okay, that crown's probably a bit far forward, but you see what I'm saying. So in this baby, on Alfie, I've done all of this back bit, but not the sides. So I'm going to start with the sides next on Alfie, so you can see how that goes. So as I say, this will rub off. If you leave it a few hours, it's more difficult to rub off, but it will rub off. So make sure you rub it off between sessions, because you don't want to left with a white mark on his head. Okay, so back to Alfie. I'm using a fine, very dark brown, fairly straight mohair. It's lovely and soft. It may be an alpaca, I'm not sure. It's in a different bag. And the needles I'm using are number 46. Now these needles you would never get through vinyl. They're far too fine and delicate for vinyl. But for silicone they're a lot better, because being so fine you can get the hair in a lot deeper. Because obviously with silicone you can't glue the hair on the inside of the head because it's solid, so there will be some shedding in time. So I think the theory being that the finer the hole, the less likely it is to come out, the tighter the grip will be on the hair, and the deeper you can get it in. Although you are restricted to the hilt of the needle really. So these are number 46 crown needles. Crown needles have invisible to the eye barbs going up the top of the needle. I don't know if it's visible on if you can actually see the needle even on the camera. There we are. So these have, I think it's 3 or 5, I think it's 5 barbs up the needle. You can't see them to the eye, but as the needle goes into the silicone, it will pick up a tiny hair from the mohair and push it in. And we need to push it in a directional way so that the hair lies reasonably flat against the head. Now I always find that with silicone you can never get it to lie really directionally. I can't anyway. That's too thick, that one. I don't worry too much about, I don't mind if there's a few hairs go into the back bit, because nobody sits and looks at the back of a baby's head to any great degree, and I think if it's thicker it's better in a way. But the front bit and the side bit, what you're aiming for is literally just picking up one hair at a time. Now you can root from the end of the hair, which means that the hair will go in and you'll get the rest of the hair sticking out, or you can go in the middle, which means that basically it folds over and you'll always get the two hairs sticking out. I use the end, obviously the cut end on the mohair. I'm going to use the whole piece on this, because then you can see the piece of hair, what I'm working with, hopefully better, and then it'll get cut afterwards. Okay, so I'm just going to get myself sorted and I can get started. I'll show you. Okay, so what I have as well as my mohair and my needles is I have an elastic band, because I don't use a handle on the needle, I use a rubber band, so I just wrap a rubber band around the needle so I've got a bit more of a grip on it again and again. It gives you something to hang on to. It's easier, I think. You can get handles for them, but they usually take a cut down needle and really, I think they make the job more clumsy, to be honest. You can feel it so much better if you've got it like this. So I use that. I also have handy a beaker of water to wet the hair as I go along if I want to. I've got a spray which I spray my hair sometimes, although not so much with that because it can make it a bit sticky. I've got my hairdresser scissors to cut it, and I have a toothbrush, a baby's toothbrush, a comb and a baby brush to brush the hair as I'm going along. So mostly I dip the toothbrush in water and then brush it to make sure that it's going in the right direction and it looks okay while I'm working. If you use too much water as you're going along, the hair can get a bit scrappy, a bit like if you've been out in the rain, your hair starts getting a bit frizzy. But it all sorts itself out when you can use conditioner at the end. So I'm going to turn the baby round to the side and position him so that I can see the side of his head. I'm just going to get a small section of the mohair. Now I'm left-handed, so you'll be doing everything the opposite way, but I'm sure you'll be able to work that out. Oh, and I've got some tweezers because sometimes if you put too many pieces of hair in at once, you can just pull them out. Okay, so now this directional mapping that you do, your needle always points towards the crown. So if I'm doing from here, it points up towards the spiral bit. So from the front, the needle always points in that direction. The angle of the needle, well, I'd say as horizontal as you can get it in, to be quite honest. Don't put it in like that, because if you do, the hair's all just going to stand on end. So if you can get it at an angle, that's better. So what I do is line the needle across just a few strands of hair, one if you can get it, and push it in. Pull the hair away, and you can see, or you can't see, I don't think I've actually grabbed a hair there. I'm just going to put my slightly better glasses on, except no, I'm not, because I don't know where they are. So I wonder if I can zoom in a bit better. There we are. So you can see a bit better what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do again is push it in, pull it out. See there, I've got a hair. I've actually got two hairs there, but that's fine. I've got too many there, I've got about 5. So I'm going to pull a few out. I just keep going on like this from the end upwards. Again, too many there. So if you get like that where you get a clump in, you can pull at them. Sometimes just a few will come out and leave 1 or 2 in, which is fine. And sometimes a whole lot will come out, which is fine. You can just do it again. So you keep going along. I go along in kind of lines. 1 or 2 hairs deep type of thing. As I say, I'm more particular at the front about only getting 1 or 2 hairs in. At the back, I'm not so worried if it's a bit thicker. The thing with getting more than 1 or 2 hairs in, you get this ugly plug. I don't know if you can see from there. If I try and get a few in there, wouldn't that be always the case? I can just get 1 or 2 in. Next time I get a plug in, I'll show you. Obviously, the closer together you root it, the thicker the hair will be. So I'll show you sort of what I've got so far. There we are. I'm not doing this bit at the front. This is where you just get very light hair at the temples. I'm going to do that at the very end when I see what I've got. So I'm just sliding the needle in, laying it across the ends of the hairs, and just sliding it in. You need to have really good light to see what you're doing, and you need to have reasonably good eyesight. It can take hours and hours and hours. I usually reckon on around the back, sort of 1.5 to 2 hours per section on a small head like this. It can take sort of, the most I've ever spent, I usually spend on a baby is about maybe 15-20 hours rooting, but I know some people can spend 50 hours plus rooting one head. Obviously you can introduce different colours, so if you wanted sort of say a bit of sun-kissed hair or a bit paler at the front, say, you can mix 2 different mohair types and do sort of, if you hold them together, then you're going to get a mixture of 2 different colours which will blend. So it's a really quite monotonous job. But once you've got your head mapped out, you don't have to think about where you're putting it, and you know that you're going to have to fill this area, and you know what direction you want the hair to go. Every time I do a few more hairs than I should, I pull them out again. There are obviously different sizes of needles. For vinyl, you use slightly thicker needles. You'd never be able to get a number 46 through vinyl, but you can use your vinyl, your needles that you'd use for vinyl. It's just that if you want to use the optimum, 46 is the one recommended for silicone. As you can see, I'm doing it a lot finer around the front here than I did around the back. As I say, mainly because the hair, to my mind, is not as important around the back as it is around the front, because you see that all the time, and also it lies on the back, so it does get messed up and rubbed anyway. And again, some people use fork needles. I've never got on with fork needles at all. I have to say, I'm ashamed to say, I have never actually managed to pick up a hair and get it in the head with a fork needle. I don't understand them at all. I'm really rubbish. I can't see what I'm doing, and I stab away at the head and nothing happens. So I'm sure they're very good. I just seem to have an issue with. Sorry about the noise. Again, it's the dog. She doesn't normally make noises like this, only when I talk to myself. I think she thinks I must be talking to her because I'm sitting on my own, chattering away. She thinks it must be something to do with her. Isn't it, Pepper? You be good. And then she wags her tail and knocks over my glass of water that I use for the rooting. As you can see, I'm speeding up now. I've covered quite a bit really in those few minutes that I've been doing it, and it's looking quite nice. Obviously, if you cut your hair in half or even in thirds, you're going to get a lot more out of it, but I'm just doing it so that you can see how I'm laying it across. I root from the end, not the middle. As I say, some people do root from the middle, but you'll never get just one piece in. You'll always get that folded 2 pieces. So what I do is I lie the baby. It's in a way it's more difficult with a full body silicone because you've got the body to deal with for holding. So I lie the baby on a footstool, and so the head's just resting on my knee or between my legs, with the little neck cushion, and you can get it into just about any position you need it to be in. Silicone, as I say, it does rub out. It can be rerouted very successfully, I believe. I've never actually rerouted one, but I know they can be. So if the hair does pull out, if the baby's handled a lot, it's nothing to worry about too much. It can be redone. I'd say I'm not the best router in the world by any means. So my intention here is just to give you the basics. I'm far too impatient to actually root beautifully, which is a shame, really. So I kind of go in sort of rows. Not always straight lines. You don't want to have a load of straight lines. So it's just a case of building it up gradually where you want to go. Do approximately the same distance apart of each strand. I do it about, I suppose it's about, is it 1 or 2 millimeters apart? Again, it depends how thick you want the hair. If you want a very, very fine sort of new baby, almost not there look, then definitely only strand one strand at a time, and you can do it very, very finely then. But right, I'm more or less coming to the end of this. If you do it one strand at a time, you can, even with dark hair, you can virtually not see where it's gone into the head. Whereas if you do it more than one strand, you get these sort of plug type looks, which is not particularly nice. You get the same with vinyl, with rooted hair. The only way to avoid that is to literally put one strand in at a time. Watch you don't stab yourself as well, because when you're doing it like this, the needle actually comes out there, so you can easily stab your own finger with it. I've had many a stabbed finger. Okay. I don't know how much the camera's picking up actually. I think it's picking it up fairly well. If you want to, you can cut it as you go along as well. I like to cut it reasonably long as I go along, and then I'll cut it properly at the end. So I'll cut it sort of like off the head that distance. And I'm quite naughty, I just throw it on the floor and hoover it up afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to go off camera and do a little bit, and then I'll come back on a little bit later, because it must be really boring to watch. So it's looking quite good. Okay, I'm going to go off camera now and come back a little bit later. Thank you. Okay, I've completed the sides now. Those two little parts at the side. So that's one side, and that's the other side. So I'm not going to do the detail at the front, at the side, at the very front of the sides, this bit not yet. I'm going to do the top, and then when I've done that, I can pull it all together with this bit. Now, occasionally you'll get heads, babies' heads, where there's kind of a flicky thing going on where it kind of goes back and then to the side. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to do it all forwards. Obviously, babies don't have a fringe. Their head, basically, their hair usually comes to an end here. So actually, it should be rooted a little bit further back than I've got this line here. So I'm going to do another line a bit further back. So the actual root will go in, will stop there. Because you get a little bit of this coming forward. It probably should be even further back than that actually, but I don't like it. I do like a little bit of hair coming forward, so I'm going to do it like this. But you obviously don't see a fringe, you don't see the hair coming down to the eyes or anything with a newborn. Okay, so I'm just going to take a piece of my mohair and do it in exactly the same way, holding the needle, starting at the front and holding the needle towards the crown, towards this swell. So I'll see if I can zoom in a bit. So I'm going to not just do a row at the front like a row of soldiers. I'm going to do it fairly sparse, this front bit, very, very finely. Because what you don't want is like a row, a really thick row that just finishes. So I'm just going to do a sparse kind of, you can always add a few bits at the end. So again, if you can, one strand at a time. If you see any nasty plugs, especially near the front or the sides, see if you can remove them. I also usually do this top bit thicker than I do the sides, so I like a nice thick top of the head. So I'll be adding more hair than I do at the sides eventually. Sometimes I'll just do a covering and then go back in and add more. quite nice hair to root because it's it's dark. I find rooting blonde hair is horrible, a horrible job, especially the very very pale blonde hair. In fact, I won't do it now. I won't use very blonde hair, because I actually don't think it always looks very nice anyway. So I'll use the medium brown, baby brown, but not the very blonde if I can help it, because it's an absolute nightmare to root. To be quite honest, you can't see it. It's like rooting with transparent hair. You're just hoping for the best. So I'm putting the needle in as far as I can, you know. So if I'm doing it slowly, I'm pushing the needle in up to the hilt part here. So this is where the needle gets thicker. So you push it right in as far as it'll go, so that there's a good, at least an inch of hair going into the head. Right, now I'm rooting a teeny bit thicker now. Now I'm coming away from the edge, not worrying too much about getting more than one strand in at a time, because I do want the top of the head to be quite thick. I want that kind of baby mussed up sort of thick head of hair mop at the top. But as you can see, that's really ugly, that bit that's gone in there, so I'm just going to pull that. So you go along in kind of rows, but not like soldiers, just covering, going further and further in as you go along. I'm trying to do it evenly so that the hairs are approximately the same distance apart. If you want it thicker, obviously you're going to have more holes, more roots. Going to be closer together. I do it quite sparsely, sort of at the end here where the side and the top meet, so that there's a kind of, not a parting, because obviously babies don't have partings, but there's a sort of an area which is lighter, and I'll cut the hair a bit shorter as well at that bit. So any areas where you see it going in too thickly like that, just pop it out again. And if you see in the area that you've done already, an area where, you know, there's a bit of a baldy patch, just go back over it. Just drop my needle, not a good thing to do. So I might seem to be doing this quite quickly, but I'm actually looking exactly where I want my needle to go in, and aiming it in the spot. So I'm not just doing it randomly, I'm actually looking and seeing exactly where I want my needle to go. Still holding the needle in the direction, so that hopefully the hair lies flat, even though I want this hair fairly mussed up on the top, thick and a little bit sticky uppy. It's absolutely gorgeous, this hair. It's really flyaway and fine. I used the Suri alpaca once before and it was way too fine. It was almost like rooting with cat hair. It was so fine. That was blonde actually. It was impossible. I think that this is alpaca as well, but this is beautiful to work with. It's by far softer than the mohair, the standard mohair. Right, this must be really boring again to watch, so I'm going to do some off camera and come back when I've more or less filled in this top part. As you can see, the back's getting a bit messed up, having it lying on something, but I don't really think there's any way around that. So I'll come back on a bit later. What I'm doing as well is I'm doing a kind of directional thing here. Instead of going all the way back, I'm actually going to do a bit of a spiral. You probably won't be able to notice it too much once it's finished, but that's the intention anyway. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see, I've almost closed up the hole, the bald patch at the top of the crown. I'm not going to do a spiral swirl. I'm just going to do a bit of a swirl round into the crown. That's the where the swirl will finish. But I'm not going to actually go round and round as a spiral, not on this one. So I'm rooting it quite thickly here, and then I'll probably go back and fill in a bit thicker on this top bit here. So if you hear a snoring noise, it is the dog again. It's not me having dropped off to sleep. And that heavy breathing is not me either. The needles last quite a long time. Sometimes you'll have to change. They'll go a bit blunt and you need to change them if the barbs sort of like get damaged. This is only a very small baby's head, and this needle has actually done the whole head. They very rarely snap in the silicone, unless you're being a bit over violent with them. They don't tend to, not like the vinyl ones. I think it's such a long time since I've rooted vinyl. I actually can't remember. That much about it. Just a little bit more hair. There he is, all closed up. Right, I'm going to trim his hair and then see what I need to do around the front. So I'm going to move out a bit more. So what I'm going to do is basically, as I say, this hair is much longer than it would be normally because I would normally cut it in half to root it. So I'm just giving it a good couple of inches at the moment, just to get it down so that it's all the same height, all the same length. Some areas will be longer than others, even though on a true newborn baby it's all very, very, very short. So I'm just wetting the comb a little bit by dipping it in the water and then cutting it to about 1 inch, 2 inches. So it's a bit more manageable to actually start shaping it a little bit. I've cut some of the side already a little bit. I do recommend you get a really good pair of scissors. I get hairdressing scissors for this. Right, I'm going to just pull his blanket up over here so you can see a bit better what I'm doing with the hair. So I'm just going to start cutting it down a little bit. Make sure it's just all the same length, more or less. He's really cute. So this hair at the back, as I say, does get messed up while you're rooting the front. So just a case of smoothing it out. Right, I'm going to just get rid of some of this. Right, get the length of some of this. Scruffy bits. I think I'm going to go a bit thicker on the top of the head. I really want this sort of like kind of sticky uppy type hair, and it's still quite thin. It's okay. It's very realistic looking, but I think I'm just going to go in a bit thicker on the top here. So this area here, I'm going to go in a bit thicker. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that next. Really very happy with the way he's looking though. He's looking really cute. I just need to thicken up this bit here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to do that off camera and come back in a sec. I'm going to show you what I'm doing really, and what I'm going to do is part the hair so it reveals the sort of like the sparse bits, and then sort of fill in the bits rather than just randomly sort of filling it in all over the place. So I'll actually fill it in the bits that haven't got any hairs. I think I may change the needle here because I don't think many, it may be just as I'm getting impatient, but I don't think many hairs are actually going in. And I think it's okay. The light's not brilliant now. That's better. feel a bit like the knit nurse. Anybody remember the knit nurse in school? Or am I showing my age? I wonder if they still have those now. Do they still have knit nurses in school? That's what they must have. Right, I'm going to carry on like this for just a little bit longer. It must be a bit boring again, so I'll switch the camera off and come back. Okay. Right, I've thickened that up a little bit. So I'm just going to cut that down to the same length as the others. Even though I'm left-handed, I still use scissors with the right hand. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as left-handed scissors and things. I just got on with it. Right. It's looking very cute. So that's kind of the look I was after, just kind of a bit fluffy. He'll look better when he's had his bath and it's smoothed out. But I'm just going to do the front bit, around the temples here. And I'm just going to find a photograph to show you first of all. So I'm going to switch this off for a sec. Okay, what we're going to be looking at now is this bit here. You can't see terribly well on this picture, but it comes up to here. The main hair goes like that, but there's an area sort of here at either side of the temples. It's very, very fine, just like sort of facial hair. I'm going to do that bit anyway. So that bit is we're looking at down here and down here. Okay, and then the main hair comes. So it's very, very, very fine and downy. So we're going to do it. We're going to root it really, really finely, and we're going to cut it really quite short when we cut it. If I can find the needle. The thing is not to sit on the needle either when you're doing this. So I'm going to directionally root it, going backwards. This one, not coming forwards, going backwards. So this is the one exception to when we direct our needle towards the crown. I'm just going to get rid of all this, right? and we're going to root it backwards, so I'm going to root literally one strand at a time. Really finely. Not thickly, quite sparse, and certainly no more than one strand of hair at a time. Alright, sweetie. So it's going to come up and more or less meet this, but it isn't part of the hairline. There we are. And again, we don't want an exact line where it finishes or starts, and then it's going to go back and join this part here, which can be a little bit thicker. So this bit is going to be really cut quite short. There we are. So it just kind of sweeps round and then goes into the thicker stuff here. Oops. Try not to drop your needle in your shoe like I've just done. At least if you do, don't get up and walk around with it. Okay, can you see that? So this is the thicker part that forms part of the hair, the actual hair. And then these very, very fine pieces should be almost invisible. Obviously, if the baby's very premature, they have quite a bit of hair on the face and that, so this is more pronounced. And some babies have more than others. But it's always very, very fine. Right, I'll just cut that down. See what that looks like. At least I will if I can find my comb. There we are. So there we have it. This kind of area around here where we get this very fine facial hair almost. I don't know if you can actually see that in the video, but you'll see it better when it's finished. The light's not brilliant here at the moment, so I'm going to do the other side anyway. I'll do it off camera. So this is what we're getting. Just a very light covering of hair around the temple. Okay, I'm going to do the other side, come back. Okay, here he is, ready for his bath.